Welcome to Sound Meets Sound.
Welcome, Samantha Ege, to the Sound Meets Sound podcast. I'm really excited to have you here. And so I want to just get started, jump right in, as I usually do, with your musician origin story, where maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you came to be a musician. Did it start with the piano? And once you got to the piano, how did you decide to turn it into a career?
So piano has always been a part of my life ever since I was very young, and it was always clear that music would be something that I would pursue. With this area of women composers, that's more of a recent development through coming across the music of people like Florence Price and Clara Schumann and beginning to question, why is this music not part of my repertoire already? And so those realizations came a few years ago, and that's when I decided to actively pursue and learn music by women composers exclusively. And once I did that, it's kind of funny actually, doors began to open more than if I had just stuck to the canon. And I guess there's clearly a movement where there is a lot of interest in various women composers, and I think everything sort of came together at the right time. I was invited to present at the House of the British High Commissioner here in Singapore, and there was an event hosted by the British Chamber of Commerce to do with women in business, and my event was women in music. So basically the idea was that I would present a different side to women's achievements, historical and present. And it was very successful, and after that I did a few recordings of the pieces that I played, which included Florence Price, Margaret Bonds, Zenobia Powell Perry, Cecile Chaminade and Vítězslava Kaprálová. And my friend heard that recording and played those recordings to his client, who was the owner of the label that I ended up recording my album with.
Wow.
And yeah, it's all very exciting how it happened, and it's definitely not something that I could have predicted, but something that really started as a passion project has really taken over. And like I said, it's opened up a lot more doors and opportunities for me as a performer.
We know there's 4 women on the album. How many pieces total are you recording for it?
So I play Florence Price's Sonata in E minor, which has 3 movements. And then I play a set of miniatures by Ethel Bilsland, who she's actually the grandmother of the High Commissioner's wife. So through this event that I had in Singapore, I learned that her grandmother was a composer, and that just created such an amazing connection where we've been exploring her music, and these pieces have never been recorded on an album before.
Wow.
And because of that event having such an important role in this journey that I'm on, it just felt that Ethel Bilsland needed to be represented on this album. And there's also 2 pieces by Vítězslava Kaprálová, the Sonata Appassionata, which she wrote when she was 18. It's an incredible piece. And then her April Preludes, which she wrote, I think, the year before she died at the age of 25, which is obviously slightly more mature, but also just very expressive, very beautiful set of pieces. And then there's Margaret Bond's Troubled Water.
How did you get the scores for for Bill San?
So the score that I have is the only one that was published. I do have her manuscripts of string quartets, Serenade for Strings, that I'm going through at the moment and just trying to get them on the computer so that they can hopefully eventually be published. She did compose quite a lot, and from what I've heard, from what I've been able to access, she was incredibly knowledgeable about composition and very experienced, I would say. She clearly knew what she was doing. But what I've learned is that before World War II, she stopped composing completely, and she became a professor of voice at the Royal Academy of Music in England. And she really, it was almost as if she saw composition as a luxury that she couldn't afford anymore, and she needed to focus on providing for her family. And I think that's another reason to bring her music to the fore, because she also represents the sacrifices that women make and the choices that they have to make and the priorities around family that often determine those choices and sacrifices.
Another aspect of your life that interests me which is Singapore, and how you ended up there, and what it's like to teach internationally.
So I visited Singapore on a holiday, and I just got a really great feel for the place. It's very safe, very clean, very modern, and I just had this strong feel that this is where I wanted to live. And so I waited for the right job opportunity to come up, and it came up, and I applied. And
that's so cool. You were just like, I like Singapore and I'm going to get a job there. And then you did. And then it led to this amazing performance that's now leading to this. What are you a music teacher at a school there, or what is your job in Singapore?
Yes. So I teach at an international school, elementary and middle school music. So I teach a general music program.
Okay. Cool.
And yeah, the program is really diverse. We cover styles outside of Western music, which I think is really important for students, especially in an international community. One of the things that drew me to Singapore is the value of education here, and the support for music and the arts. All of these things are very encouraging for a music teacher.
Right, yeah. I saw on your site you are pursuing a PhD at University of York.
Yes, so that's the University of York in the UK, because there's also a York University in Canada.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So,
okay, yeah.
just to clarify, because some people have confused the two, and obviously because I've studied in Canada, it wouldn't be so far-fetched to think that that's where I'm doing my PhD.
Right, yeah.
Yes, my supervisor, the wonderful thing, well, many wonderful things about him, but one of them is that he's based in York, but he's also based in Illinois, in Chicago, which is where my archival research ends up taking me. And it was great because when I was in Chicago earlier this month, my supervisor was there, and he was able to come to my lecture recital, which was fantastic. I managed to balance my PhD with my work because I don't have to be on campus, all through the year. And so I quite like having the two components in my life.
So your PhD is on Florence Price, right?
Yes.
And as you said, that takes you to Chicago a lot. What exactly are you studying around that? Like, what are you doing in the archives? How's this PhD going to manifest itself?
So my focus is on looking at her compositional voice and how American identity, how nationalism factors into that. The fact that she's a Black woman, which is sort of the antithesis of, when we think of an American school of music, there's a sense of dissonance there. So what I'm exploring is how she resolves that dissonance in her music. And I believe that comes through her engaging with African American folk music and bringing it into this classical arena and dignifying slave music within her music, within her compositions. But my research has led me off on all sorts of tangents around other women composers. My lecture recital at the Chicago Symphony Center last week talked about her contemporaries, Margaret Bonds, Irene Britton-Smith, Nora Holt. And there's just such a fascinating community that she's a part of. So that isn't central to my PhD, but it's something that I'm very interested in. And I feel like that's something that I can explore more in performance. So I'm currently working on a program around her and her contemporaries.
When you're listening to the music, how do you isolate where that influence is? Like, did she have like a collection of notated, folk music, slave music, however you want to call it, these tunes, that's incorporated into her piece? Like, how do you know where that's coming from? I guess is my question.
It's a really good question. In some cases, she's very explicit about where the influences come from. If you take, for example, Fantasy Negra, which is based on Please Don't Let This Harvest Pass, those connections are very direct. But there are also times where she's evoking the sound world. Well, I'm remembering something that I can't remember the details of. But basically, in the late 1900s, there were a whole bunch of studies by early ethnomusicologists, white ethnomusicologists, as well as black ethnomusicologists, transcribing these folk songs. And as well, you have people like the Fisk Jubilee Singers who are traveling and presenting these songs in concert halls. And she's also influenced by people like Harry T. Burleigh. So there is a history before her. So even though Florence Price she didn't ever really have to engage with that level of plantation life. There are enough influences that she would have absorbed, the sound world. And I think as she matured as a composer, that's something that she very deliberately embraced.
I kind of wanted to get a little bit more into your early life as a musician. I just find it really interesting, as a child, your interactions with music.
I'm not aware of ever making the decision to play the piano. It's just something that's always been with me. I do remember having quite strong opinions about my choices of repertoire. I liked a lot of Scott Joplin pieces. I remember my piano teacher saying that we needed to play proper music.
Oh, ouch. He's in all your collections. That's proper
right.
music.
And I always enjoyed classical music that was a fusion of different styles. And as I got older, that led me to explore Nikolai Kapistin's works. I don't know if you're familiar with him. So he writes in a very, I would say it's a blend almost of jazz and very Russian influences as well. But it's incredibly jazzy, and I absolutely loved it. But then I was sort of brought back on track again. But I have always enjoyed playing obscure repertoire. And I think part of that comes from being able to present something that people haven't heard and being able to take more ownership over the music. And as well, something that I talk about is just thinking growing up that I was an anomaly because of being a black girl playing classical music. And so that's something that has definitely affected my sense of ownership over white male composers.
Right.
Feeling that, well, there are a whole bunch of white male musicians who can probably play this much better than me. So, just developing a bit of a complex around that. And as I said, I've always had the piano in my life, and I focused on performance at university. I had a wonderful teacher, Dr. Luba Zook at McGill University, who really taught me how to play and feel music and internalize, and it was just very transformative.
So you're talking about repertoire, and in that YouTube video that I keep bringing up, which everyone should go watch, you do talk about this act of historiography where we go back to the history of music and to the history of repertoire, and we start reinterpreting it, and I'm trying to remember, I think I had it, changing perspectives, on what the history was, because history obviously is a constructed thing, and this, there's a lens through which we have been shown the past, So, and you were saying that that's part of your sort of project now, and just in general, is looking back on history and saying, like, what did we miss, and changing perspective on that. I mean, I don't know why I'm talking for you. You could say it better. But I mean, I think that's part of your thing, right? Like going back.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think it's so helpful for me to do this in order to reclaim that confidence and that belief in being very much entitled to participate in this field. And through women composers, that's just been such an empowering thing for me to engage with, because I just feel very much connected. And yeah, in performing their work, I get the opportunity to assert myself as well. Right. Which I guess perhaps that's what was missing in this other repertoire. I couldn't assert myself. I was always in the shadow of whatever I was playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the classical world. We spend so much time recycling the same thing over and over again. It kind of loses its humanity that way. Like, you're really engaging with these pieces because they're teaching you a different way to look at yourself, and like...
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah, talking, was it Luba Zook? Is that her name?
Yes.
Yeah. So was she like one of the first people to introduce like women composers to you? Like, I had a teacher like that where it was like all of a sudden I was starting getting all this repertoire from women, because she was a woman and knew a lot of women composers for the organ. Was that where that started, or was she still sort of teaching you the standard rep at McGill?
So yeah, she stuck to the standard repertoire. Mm-hmm. But as I said, she helped me learn how to internalize music and to really connect, and the value of playing from memory as well, which is something that I could do, but no one had ever told me to do it, so I just always had the music in front of me.
Oh, okay.
I feel like that was the moment where I really became a pianist. But it was actually a musicology professor, Lisa Barg, who introduced me to Florence Price. It was part of a course on 20th century music, and we had looked at Nadia and Lily Boulanger on one week, and then Florence Price and Margaret Bonds the next week. And I couldn't believe that Florence Price and Margaret Bonds were Black classical women composers. That was huge. And I was just so fascinated with their work. And I just always knew that it was something that I would come back to. But McGill was such an important time for me. A lot of the things that I'm doing now, and a lot of the things, have stemmed from McGill. Mm-hmm. And also that was my first experience living abroad. And it was an amazing experience. So that also, my attention to the travel, you can see where that comes from. I'm going back to Florence Price again.
Okay.
But basically, she started out as a passion project for me. And because I remembered how life-changing that experience at McGill had been, just learning that she existed. And so whilst in Singapore, I decided to come back to her music, and I decided, okay, I'm going to learn it and just sort of see where that takes me. And I found that actually I wanted this to be more than just a passion project. And so I started applying for masters in different universities in the UK. And I initially was very excited, but that excitement soon disappeared when I got responses from prospective supervisors saying, sorry, I don't understand blues music, I don't understand jazz, sorry, I can't support you with your work. And I just felt very upset actually about the situation, because I knew I wanted to do justice to this work, and I had such a strong sense of how I wanted my dissertation and my research to unfold, and it needed to be in the right hands. Right. So I sent out one more application to my current supervisor, and I decided, you know what, this probably isn't going to work out. And then I heard from him, and I could just feel the enthusiasm and support like radiating off his email. It was incredible and so sincere, and he really believed in what I was doing. He was just so supportive right from the beginning. I'm so glad, obviously, that it turned out this way, but Florence Price is just so important to me that I couldn't sort of compromise on how I wanted to go about my research, you know.
That's so smart, and yeah, really a lesson for anyone thinking about graduate work. It's like, if you can't find that person that's going to help you usher in this work, you know, that advisor, like, it's really almost just not worth it, you know, like. So is your, I don't know how they do it in England, is it going to be like an ethnomusicology degree or musicology, or is it just sort of a graduate music degree?
Yeah, so music via research, and I will likely combine performance and a dissertation.
Okay, all right. So the archival, you said you're doing archival work in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So is there I'm going to sound like a real moron right now. Is there a Florence Price like archive in Chicago, or is it scattered throughout libraries there?
The archives are at the University of Arkansas.
Oh.
So I was there last April, and that was a great experience because they have so much. Chicago is great for accessing the works of the early academics writing about Florence Price. So Dominique Renee de Lerma and Eileen Southern, they just have a wealth of resources that document this history. And so I feel that if you're working on Florence Price, you need to go to both places because they just complement each other so well.
Right. Oh, that's cool. And now you're joining that lineage of researchers in Chicago in a way that's...
oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's really, really cool. Can I ask about, was this your first recording project, this album?
Yes. And so this experience has been so new to me. And also it's a new experience for Wave Theory Records as well, because Dan Jones, who owns the company, he's a composer and he writes music for film. Oh. So he's won BAFTA awards, and he's a very celebrated composer. And so this has definitely been a new experience for us. And obviously I went from, you know, having my recordings on YouTube to recording this album. So I didn't plan that far ahead in terms of a big tour or anything like that.
I see it.
So, yeah.
Right. How was it recording? I've been privy to and been on a couple pop recordings, but what is it like recording a classical piano album? Was it really stressful? Did you have to do a lot of takes, or what was that experience like for you?
So I was incredibly nervous about this because, well, I'm putting myself out there and putting my work and my passion out there for everyone to listen to and everyone to have an opinion of. We recorded at Real World Studios, which is owned by, I don't know if you know Peter Gabriel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's his studio in
wow,
Bath.
That's cool. Where is that?
In Bath.
Oh, Bath. Okay, sorry.
It's my accent.
No, I feel stupid saying Bath, because it's like, it's Bath. And I've been there, and it's beautiful.
Well, the studio is incredibly beautiful, and it's a very warm and homely environment. So all the factors were there to relax me, but that didn't have any effect as soon as I started playing. My heart was racing, and I was like sweating, and I was hot and cold. And then I think I played. What did I play first? I started with Capralova, and I played through, and it was very stressful. And then I think it was Dan or my friend Simon said, "That was great," and I relaxed so much after that because I thought, okay,
right.
I can do this.
Yeah, sometimes just getting someone outside of you to like affirm what you're doing, it's like, okay, I'm not insane,
Yes.
I enjoy doing this. This is why I'm doing it. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And in the lead up, I didn't have any idea of how to practice for this because we had a 12-hour slot, so I wasn't going to do a 12-hour practice session at home. I mean, maybe I should have done, but
no.
It just...
Oh, wow. That your entire recording session was 12 hours?
12 hours. And
wow.
And around that time when we were recording, I'd been falling asleep at about 8 p.m. because of the jet lag. So that's one of the reasons why we started with the Capralova, just because we put Florence Price towards the end because I'd been playing that for much longer and I just felt a lot more confident with Florence Price. So after that, I just played and played. And I think we started at about 10 in the morning and we were done by 10 at night. And it was exhausting, but I don't think I realized how exhausted I was until right at the end. And it was such a positive experience. I absolutely loved it. And what was great is that Dan and Simon just had such a strong understanding of what I was trying to say with the music. And we were just all on the same page. It's just, such a great experience. So I'm very proud of what I've achieved, regardless of how others may interpret it, whether or not they enjoy it. I'm so proud of this.
Yeah, and that's the important thing as the creator. Like, you need to feel like this was what I set out to do. Yeah, that's really great, and it helps when you have, like you said, you have people on the outside of you who know what you want and can tell you, like, this is how this sounds from the outside. Yeah, that's great. So, and you're going back to Chicago next year, right?
Yeah, so I know 100% that I'll be performing in Chicago next year.
That's cool.
So my research on Florence Price has connected me to so many wonderful people. And through my research, I have learned the value of community in her life. But through doing this research, I feel as though I have become part of a community of people who are interested in her life, interested in championing women composers, and that's just been a really wonderful thing to connect with others that are doing similar things or doing different things, or others that have done it all and can give advice to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm just really grateful for that. As I said, growing up as a young Black pianist, I never had those connections. That has just been such an encouraging thing, and with things like Skype and Facebook, I can reach out anytime. I have to obviously be mindful of the time differences, but it's nice that those communities don't end just because I'm back here in Singapore. Those conversations continue, and it's just been really heartwarming. I just remembered another concert I'm doing.
Oh, cool. Tell us.
The International Women's Day recital will be next March. I did one this year.
So do you think you'll play in that concert? Do you have a concept of what you'll play, or be kind of what you've been doing with the For Women project?
Yeah, I think so. I'll also be learning new repertoire for Chicago. So I think it will be a mix of For Women and new pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I'll definitely play the Caprolova though, because every time I've played it, people have been so moved by it. I mean, are you familiar with these works?
I listened to you. You have a video of Caprolova. Actually, yeah. Caprolova. I'd heard of her like right before I saw you on Twitter. I had just heard of her. I'd never heard her music, and then I saw your project, and you had a performance up there of one of her pieces. So, but she's super new to me. I don't know her music that well.
Yeah, well, when people hear the sonata, they are just blown away, which is how I felt as soon as I heard it. I didn't know that she'd written it when she was 18. That was just like the icing on top. It was already amazing, and then I found that out. And so, I'll definitely play that, because it just allows me to just throw everything into it. Mm-hmm. And that's a good way. It's like a good icebreaker. She's someone that we were talking about sort of almost not being able to identify with white male composers. She's someone that I identified with so much. And also when I came across her, I think I was maybe the same age that she was when she died. So I just felt so connected to her. And sort of with my life experiences, I feel like I've been given a chance to really achieve the things I want to with my life. Her life was cut short. And so just playing her music just reminds me of why I need to just pursue what I'm passionate about, because life is just too short, which I know can sound really cheesy, but I just, whenever I hear her music, it's just a reminder that I need to keep doing this.
You really have a connection with all these composers. That's really cool, like a deep psychological, emotional.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I've managed to get to a point where I'm not too concerned about reviews, negativity, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that was part of my panic attack in the lead up, like, oh, I'm not good enough, and people are going to rip me apart because I didn't study at a Russian conservatory and all this stuff. But because of that connection I have to the composers, no one can fault that or doubt that. And then the other side to it is, if you think I'm not playing it well you learn it and play it better and get this music out there.
It's still a win for you. Yeah.
But, I'm proud of what I've done. Actually, the first time I listened to it, I just had like tears, like streaming, because I was just like, I did this despite everything that was going on. And I just feel really proud of it. So, I mean, that said, if anyone says anything mean, I'll probably be really upset. But
of course,
for the moment, I feel very proud. And I think just always try to remember that I am proud of what I've achieved, regardless.
Yeah. So thank you, Samantha Ege, for being on Sound Meets Sound. It's been like really awesome talking to you, and I've really enjoyed learning about you and Florence Price, who has been like the second guest on this podcast. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Meg, for inviting me to talk about my work, and I really hope you enjoy For Women.